Is it possible to quit your job today and not work for the rest of your life with just $500,000 in savings? It sounds crazy, right? Well, there's actually some people that claim to have done it, including this guy on YouTube. So let's take a look and see if that's a realistic goal and whether or not that's a lifestyle you would even want to have. For starters, with a nest egg of just $500,000, how much would you be able to safely spend without risking running out of money? Well, if this is your only source of retirement income, then the answer is probably somewhere around $20,000. Now, that's based on the 4% rule, which says that you shouldn't withdraw more than 4% in any given year in retirement. Now, obviously, when it comes to these retirement calculations, it depends on a bunch of different factors, including how long you live in retirement and how aggressively you invest your nest egg. Because if you invest on the more aggressive side, then you could potentially spend more per year, although there is an additional risk if there's a market downturn. But with a $500,000 nest egg, you'd be able to safely withdraw around $20,000 per year for 20 years, and you'd have really no real risk of running out of money. There would be a 99% chance that you would not run out of money. But you can see if we play with this retirement calculator here, that if you live a little longer than expected, or if you spend a little bit more money than you expected, then when you rerun the simulation, there is a much greater chance that you run out of money. And so with a retirement portfolio of only $500,000, you're really living on the edge, because if you live longer than you thought you would, or if you end up having to spend more money per year than you thought you would, then you're running the risk of not having enough money to cover your retirement. And I think we can agree that nobody wants to have to go back to work at the age of 70 or 75 because they've completely run out of their retirement savings. So $20,000 per year is the safe withdrawal amount for this type of portfolio. That's not a lot, especially considering that the average household expenses in the US is closer to $50,000 or $60,000 per year. So that means that you'd have to make a lot of significant sacrifices to be able to pull this off. But let's take a look at exactly what a $500,000 retirement might look like. For starters, you couldn't have any debt to pull this off. So not only would you need to have at least $500,000 invested in the market, but you probably shouldn't have any outstanding debt, including even a mortgage or a car payment or any type of other debt, especially not credit card debt. Because even if you still had a mortgage payment that was very, very low at, let's say, $1,000 a month, that would be $12,000 per year, which is more than half of your income. So no debt. To be able to pull this off, you likely have to already own your own home. And the only thing that you're paying for is maybe a little bit of property taxes and some maintenance.
It's not really crazy. It's just kind of common sense. The borrower's slave to the lender. You tell me. Are you a slave or not? Slaves don't have choices. Their life is owned by someone else.
The next thing you'd have to do to be able to even consider pulling this off is to dramatically reduce living expenses. And this is everything from potentially moving to a part of the country or another country altogether where the cost of living is a lot lower, because it would be pretty much impossible to pull off this kind of retirement in a city like New York or Miami, anywhere where the cost of living is relatively high. But even by moving to a place where the cost of living is low, there would still have to be dramatic decisions made and sacrifices made in order to be able to keep expenses below that $20,000 per year threshold. So this basically means trying to save as much money as possible in every possible area of one's life. No big purchases, no extravagant vacations, cutting coupons and trying to save money on groceries, not eating out that much, definitely not giving significant gifts to people, not being able to support your family or your children. And while it's definitely possible, especially if you own your house, so you're not paying rent, and maybe you grow a bit of food or you shop at the cheapest possible place, and so your grocery bills are very low and you're not eating out that much, it's possible probably to pull this off. But is that really the kind of lifestyle that you want to have?
If you want to save money, even on a low income, then stop spending money.
And along with having no debt, moving to a place with a cheaper cost of living and trying to reduce all expenses dramatically, you would also have to have a very, very strict budget. Because if you don't stick to it, then you're going to be drawing down on your investment principal, and then you're going to risk running out of money later on in retirement. So it's very important to have a strict budget and to stick to it. And the issue with that is that any unforeseen expenses that come up will be difficult, will cause hardship. If the roof of your house springs a leak, or if your vehicle breaks down, then what are you gonna do? If you have to take 50 grand out of your retirement investments in order to pay for this unforeseen expense, then that's really gonna have a huge impact on how long that money lasts in retirement. So with this kind of portfolio and this kind of retirement, you're really essentially living on the edge. You have to live super frugally and you have to hope that nothing goes wrong.
The biggest things we do is make our large expenses quite a bit lower. We rent a very cheap apartment. There are all these categories for a lot of people that just don't exist for us. I mean, we don't have a restaurant budget. We don't have an alcohol budget. We don't have a car budget. We don't, like, none of those things are even, you know, most of those categories are $0 spent in those categories.
Now, of course, there are some ways to bring extra income into the equation. So that could be having a part-time job, having a side hustle, and the guy on YouTube who has retired on $500,000 has a YouTube channel, makes a decent amount of money from that, and I think he also does Airbnb rentals or something like that. So he's not actually retired on just $500,000. And having a little bit of extra income would probably be essential to actually being able to pull this off, because $20,000 a year is so low, and the margin for error, if anything bad happens, is really non-existent. So by having a side hustle or some other way to bring in income would really make this a lot more feasible. And so maybe retirement with $500K doesn't mean full retirement, but it means quitting a full-time job and then focusing on hobbies or something that's just part-time work just to make a little bit of cash, still enjoying more of life, not having to work full-time, but not being also fully retired. And it's likely at some point that you'd be able to collect some sort of social security or government pension. Now, it's probably not going to be a lot, but it might supplement a retirement income from that $500,000 investment portfolio. So let's say you're making $20,000 per year from your own savings, and then the government kicks in another $10,000, $15,000 or something like that. Then you're starting to look at a retirement income that's more reasonable, although it's definitely still lower than the actual average household expenses in the US right now.
First of all, I think it's no surprise that the more income sources you have, the more money you tend to make.
And so the key takeaway from all of this is, while technically it might be possible to pull off retirement with just $500,000 saved up, it's actually not that simple, because you also probably need to own your own home, you need to have no other debt, you need to dramatically sacrifice and reduce your quality of life to be able to pull off this kind of retirement. And I'm not sure that this is the type of lifestyle that many people would actually want to lead. Now, if you can actually pull it off, then honestly, kudos to you. Personally, I don't think I could do it. Maybe only if I was living in another country, somewhere abroad, maybe somewhere warm, where the cost of living is really low, and where $500,000 or $20K per year would actually go a long way. But in North America, unlikely, especially considering the looming retirement crisis that we have just around the corner. And if you want to see why Gen Z may never be able to actually retire, then check out this video right here.